I've just been watching a video about Plantinga. It was by Zarkoff45. It's quite an old video there, Zarkoff, made for the Polish Olympics. But very interesting. I don't know a lot about Plantinga, but he had been recommended to me a couple of times as someone who was quite interesting. And I know he's got a bit of kudos and reputation. You know, I've heard his name cited at conferences and that kind of thing as a credible philosophical source. So it's really surprising this video there that where he says, well, he's basically arguing, as you say in your video, Zarkoff, for substance dualism in the most crass form. You know, as you point out, you know, he basically says my brain and my mind and my body are separate things because I can imagine them being. That's essentially his argument. It's a very strange ontological gymnastics going on there. I can imagine my mind and my body separate, therefore they must be. Which is very weird, really, isn't it? Because he's talking about, you know, imagining his mind being existing without his body, or his mind being transferred into another body, or his mind being onto a silicon chip or something like that, and therefore the capacity to imagine that somehow makes it real. It's really interesting. I mean, there's some interesting things there about the relationship between mind and body, which I've been thinking about recently. Which this has really highlighted for me, which I'm grateful for, which is to do with that really old Cartesian idea, you know, because it's Cartesian substance dualism, Descartes separating those, or most clearly describing a separation. But Descartes had this idea of this place in the brain, didn't he, where those things come together. I think it was the pineal gland he claimed was the point where mind, the unextended res cogitans, where mind touched body and allowed for interactions with res extensa, the body, the pineal gland. And of course that's rubbish. And the pineal gland doesn't serve that function at all. But I was recently looking at a video by Antonio Damasio, and I've read a lot of Antonio Damasio's stuff. He's a fantastic neuroscientist, and he's really lyrical. And I don't know, I just think he's got a great way about explaining what he's interested in. But he's done a lot of work recently in so I'm just going to demonstrate by showing a book here, because his book is right here on the shelf in front of me. This is his most recent book, Self Comes to Mind, Constructing the Conscious Brain, which I have to say I haven't read all of, but I've flicked through it, and I've watched all his videos on the topic. And what he's saying in there is this thesis he's been going for a while about not so much what mind is, but what self is. That's his thing really in this one, which is really interesting, because in that video that you pointed out there, Zarkoff, Plantinga is constantly talking about I. He doesn't talk about the mind in an abstract sense. He talks about the mind in a possessed, owned, personal sense. I can imagine myself separate from my body. You know, it's not any old mind. It's his mind that he's talking about. And if Damasio's thesis is correct, there is a site in the brain for that. Or just the back of the brain stem actually, which he says is the point where the brain meets the body. And it's like the part where the body and the brain are most hardwired together. There's a kind of one-to-one correspondence between what the body does and what the brain does. It's not this much more vague connectionist kind of mapping you get elsewhere. It's like hardwired together, where mind and body really do meet in the production of this sense of a consistent I. You know what I mean? So it's not just mind at large, it's mind in particular, mind with a perspective and a focus and an intentionality and a name and all those things that we regard as important. So I think, yeah, I think Plantinga, I don't know what Plantinga's up to with that video, I really don't. I'll have to watch the rest of the original that you're quoting from. But it seems to me that what he's looking for is a one-to-one correspondence between mind and body. That's basically what he says. That if my mind isn't my whole body, then it must be completely separate. It must be, you know, I must be able to do astral travelling and life after death and all that shit, if it's not my whole body. But no, I think the crucial thing is not what mind is, it's what my mind is, or anybody's mind, a personal mind. And that is very closely welded to the body. It's probably, if Damasio is right, welded to the body right at the brain stem, just there, like that. Basically, if you get damaged, you lose consciousness, you lose any sense of self, you're just gone. You know, your mind, or whatever that is still operating. You can still, you know, the brain does things and sees stuff and creates images, but the lights are on, but there's no one home. So that's interesting. Anyway, thanks for that. Thanks for the comment that pointed that video out. That's very interesting stuff.